Oluyemi Osinbajo. We have a lot to happen.
Thank you very much. Please sit. It is my special pleasure here to represent the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, at this very special celebration of the formal celebration of the International Migration Day. It's also a fitting day, the most natural human activity, moving around. Indeed, the history of development of human settlements is a history of migration and a history of the movement of human beings. But while it is the most natural phenomenon, considerable amount of migration is forced. Men, women, and children are forced by civil conflicts, by persecution, wars, natural disasters, and even climate change to move from their homes to places of refuge, places of safety, circle, where they may be able to make a decent life for themselves and for their families. So usually forced migration is what hits up the debate on migration and on migration policy. And of course, the serious questions of the adequacy and resilience of policy are some of the critical issues that arise. What are the critical questions? What are the critical issues of adequacy, resilience of policy? What are the important issues that must be taken into account in developing migration policy? As I said, forced migration is possibly one of the most important considerations today, and is probably what is most emotive and what is most difficult to grapple with. But why is that the case? First is the fact that most forced migration in recent years have been of people coming from developing countries in a flight to safety or circle to more stable countries, but more problematic to more developed societies, and I think the guest speaker pointed this out. The dramatic appearance, for instance, of 1 million Syrian refugees on the doorsteps of Europe created tremendous problems for the European community and countries in that region. Secondly, as politicians run out of options for explaining declines in economic opportunities for their own people, the easiest way out is that time-worn and usually false notion that our economic problems are caused by immigrants who have come to take our jobs, benefit from social services without making any contributions to the public purse or to society. That rhetoric is now assuming the status of truth. And today it's even more convenient to argue that migrants may even be terrorists. So the spread of fear and hate is probably the worst plague that the whole of migration policy development and thinking has experienced in a long time. But to be fair, the influx of large numbers of displaced persons to any society is bound to create some social and economic concerns. And there is much fire and very little light in simply saying that because we're all human beings, we should let everybody live where they please. That really doesn't cast much light on the issues. Organized societies have laws, plans, policies, and even cultures, and of course they have a right to protect all of these. But we'll come to that shortly. Thirdly, the phenomenon of internally displaced persons has created peculiar problems of its own, especially where, as here in Nigeria, the numbers are large. We've been told already that we have over 2 million internally displaced persons in Nigeria, forced to migrate from their homes by the Boko Haram terrorist activity. Many are in camps, but the vast majority are in host communities. There are also internal migratory issues that have given rise to frictions in Nigeria. The so-called host communities and settler community issues, and the other fatal results of clashes that they produce. Well, while I'm obviously not an expert of any kind on this subject, permit me a few questions and suggestions. First, it seems to me to be obvious that we must be examining the usefulness and adequacy of current local and global rules and policies on migration. But to do so, we must redefine existing narratives. We must think through how the issues of reducing human tragedies and inhuman discomforts suffered by most forced immigrants can be improved. Must it be the case, as Bex, a respected voice on the subject, said, that the only choices for forced migrants should be either camps or urban poverty or dangerous illegal journeys to safety? Should those be the only options? Should we not now begin to interrogate issues of how to document large numbers of refugees in our migration governance conversations? Are there ways by which forced migrants can be matched by processes within a global system to countries that can accommodate them and may even need their particular skills? How can countries that take in refugees be assisted by the multilateral financial and development institutions, say, for example, by way of budget support or some other types of financial assistance? How do we address the populist nationalism narratives that today appear to be sweeping through the West and, worse, appear to be a formula for electoral success? How about the complications introduced by terrorism, as evidenced by the mindless extremism of ISIL and Boko Haram? How will the voices of the rational majority across political, religious, and ethnic divides be allowed to shape migrant governance policies? For us in Nigeria, the problems are further nuanced by national identity issues. As a nation, a people, and a race bound by the same history and constitution, we must confront the internal migratory frictions being experienced in parts of the country. The Nigerian Constitution guarantees every Nigerian the right to reside anywhere in the country without discrimination. The Nigeria I believe in and the future that we must collectively create is a nation where every Nigerian is identified simply as a citizen of Nigeria, with equal rights to live, work, own business, and serve even in political offices without discrimination. We must resist attempts by those who want to play the ethnic or religious card, usually to further their own selfish political or personal causes. Permit me to thank the people and government of Switzerland for supporting this initiative. Also, I thank the European Union for their continuous and unwavering support, specifically as it relates to migration programs and policy development. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, the International Center for Migration Policy Development, ICMPD, and other international partners who have made great contributions for the development and mainstreaming of migration issues in our national development programs. I'm especially proud of the exceptional practical policy work continuously undertaken by the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons. And I think that our new Federal Commissioner, Sadia Umar Farouk, and her exceptional team deserve special commendation. Migration policy and governance, like human rights, to a large extent reflect our appreciation of the common humanity of mankind. It may sound cliché, but despite race, ethnicity, or religion, we are all human beings, merely using different languages and cultures to express the same hopes and fears. The development of policy must proceed from this crucial moral foundation. On behalf of the government and people of Nigeria, I felicitate with you all on this formal celebration of the anniversary, and especially those of civil society, government, and other thought leaders in migration policy and governance. It is now my special pleasure and privilege to declare this dialogue open.